You've got to be able to give your absolute everything 24 hours of a day, 7 days a week, 10 months straight.
How important is having an agent?
I think it's the most important thing in football. As much as a lot of clubs probably hate dealing with them, at the end of the day, the agents are the ones who get you in the door.
When you're a free agent or when you're looking for a club, how does it work?
Don't just be set on playing in one place. Like, open your mind up and sort of welcome new challenges, new experiences, new cultures. Because at the end of the day, when football's over, you can look back and you think, I've been here, I've been there, I've experienced this. And it ultimately builds you into a person that not many people will be like.
What advice would you give to a player that wants to be a pro on what they need to do, how hard they need to work?
If you want football to be your job, if you want to make a career out of being a professional, football is your life 24/7. Everything you do has an effect on football. What I eat has an effect on how I train, how I play. How much sleep I get affects when I get up for training, I'm feeling ready to go, whether I'm feeling a bit fatigued, but also in terms of recovery. Obviously in terms of like drinking alcohol and whatever, that also has its effect. Literally everything has a knock-on effect, and if you're not prepared to have to miss certain things, then it's not going to happen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Select Generation podcast. Today, we're joined by Matt Ridley. So Matt has a really interesting story I'm excited to get into. He's played in the UK, originally from the UK. He went out to college. He played different college levels. And then now he's had a difficult time in terms of his injuries on his pathway to professional. And now he can call himself a professional footballer. And I think Matt's got an interesting story because of kind of the different background that he's had in football in the game, the levels he's bounced around, and then kind of being mentally strong enough to persevere through injuries and tough times and really get to where he is now. So yeah, without further ado, Matt, appreciate your time and just give a little intro, a little background about yourself, who you are, and kind of your story in football.
Yeah, so obviously great to be on, and I think it's been long overdue. Obviously we first met in North Carolina playing for Fusion, and obviously that was a story in itself. But just a little bit about me. Obviously, Matthew Ridley from Hartlepool, England. So right on the northeast coast, just a small little town. And then, if football and wise, just literally as soon as I was up and about, I had a ball in my hand, and from there, it just went from one thing to another. It's been ups, it's been downs, but now we're back on the up, and it's a really exciting time. So hopefully everything stays good, and
Yeah.
we keep on kicking on and keep on moving through.
Yeah. So I want to talk about your time in the US because obviously right now people will see like, oh, he's playing for a professional team, he's made it to be a pro, but I don't think people will probably understand your story and where you've come from because you bounced around JUCO, Division Two, you played Division One. So how was your experience in the NCAA or in the US college system?
Um, I honestly don't think that. Say I hadn't gone to America and 18-year-old had a sort of bounce around the non-league system or like maybe nicked a trial here and there. I honestly don't think I'd be in the position what I am today. I went over to America, firstly to Landa. Um, Obviously, 18-year-old, I was probably 6'2" and I don't know, 80 kilo. So I was literally just a boy. Um, and then over the course of the 4 years, I just matured and built myself up, and obviously came out of college at 22 and sort of got into the pro game quite quickly. In fairness, obviously, I know it's quite hard coming out of the college system, especially going from England over to America, because your name sort of gets lost in a way. But I was very fortunate in being able to get my name back in the English system quite quickly, and obviously signed for Sutton United. But if we take it back to the start in terms of America, I went through a sort of agency similar to how you're sort of helping boys out. And I had a few good options. I had obviously Lander, D2, and Young Harris. They were sort of the final two what I sort of whittled everything down to. I actually didn't have any D1 options. So spoke to Mark McKeever, who was the manager at the time at Young Harris. obviously what he's went on to do in terms of obviously the college system. Obviously, we played his team in the USL2 final, and then he went on to one Knox in the USL one.
Yeah,
Is
yes.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also spoke to Lee Squires, who was at Lander at the time. I believe he's at Georgia Southern now. And yeah, I went with Lander um, in Greenwood, South Carolina. So quite a small town, and obviously moving from the States, from England to the States at 18-year old. Obviously, I'd never cooked before by myself. I'd never sort of lived by myself. So everything was just sort of an experience in itself, and I didn't really have the year what I sort of imagined. Obviously, I went in there on a good scholarship, but we had a good season as a team. Sort of got to the Elite Eight, conference final, and whatever, which were the games I sort of played in. But on as like the season as a whole, didn't really see eye to eyes with the coach, and sort of wanted something different, really. And I honestly think if I hadn't went and played USL2 off the back of that season when I went to Virginia Beach, I don't think I'd have stuck out the 4 years in America. That was probably the first time that I'd really been in a low spot
So yeah. Yeah, so I was gonna
in
say
terms of being in the football industry.
so not playing that season were you going to the coach and asking like why am I not playing, or was he playing you out of position, or when you say not seeing eye to eye to the coach, because there'll be players listening to this that probably can relate, like, oh, my coach doesn't like me that much, or I have arguments with my coach. So what was kind of your solution and experience for going to the coach? Were you kind of hounding him? Were you just asking for his opinion and listening? Like, how was your, when you say I wasn't seeing eye to the coach, what does that mean and how did you fix that?
The way I'd sort of say it, mate, is obviously when you're getting recruited, coaches sell you the dream. They give you this nice package, and they're like, you're going to be starting centre back and whatever. So I'd went in, and I was getting brought off the bench, and I was playing like centre defensive mid. I was sort of slot. I think I had maybe 17 appearances off the bench, all coming on sort of in a central defensive midfielder role. So I'd gone over there. Obviously, centre back was my position. I was like, "What's going on here?" And like I went in, spoke to him, and I was like, "What can I do? I don't want to have another year like this. I've came here to play. I haven't came here to be a squad player." And we had our disagreements, and ultimately that's why I went into the transfer portal.
Mm.
Um, I just think his sort of mentality and how he was as a coach just wasn't what I enjoyed working with, and I'm as honest as they come. Obviously, from playing with me, and I think if you're not going to be honest with me, you're not going to get the best out of me. So obviously that's why I went into the transfer portal. And obviously because I hadn't really played much, again didn't have D1 options and whatever. So I just thought, right, I'm gonna back myself here. If Lee Squires Lander's not gonna back me, then I'm gonna back myself, and I'm gonna go to JUCO. Some people look at it as a backward step, but I think it was a backward step to take two steps forward, and ultimately that's what happened. Went to Richard Bland College of William and Mary, obviously after a good USL2 season with Virginia Beach, where I played against yourself at Fusion at the time as well. And yeah, just a small JUCO really, but like I say, I backed myself. I went in first team all conference, and then again everything just opened up. I had plenty of options, and I probably whittled it down to UNLV, so you've University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Wright State. They were sort of my two ones where I sort of looked at and thought, yeah, the facilities, the coaches, the sort of system that they have, like that's what I want to be a part of.
Mm. So when you were kind of playing in the junior college, I want to talk about your mindset because there's a lot of players that will listen to this, and because there's a lot of players, even like domestic American players, that don't want to play in junior college because they think it's a backward step. But you're an international player with a good pedigree, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to go to JUCO and I'm going to back myself. So did that mindset, have you always been like a confident player who thinks I'll back myself, I'll put myself in any situation? Is that like something that you had to work on yourself? Like I'm just trying to understand for a player that maybe has a big ego, because I feel like you do have an ego, but maybe your ego had to take a hit then, or
Mm.
how did you develop that mindset? Or how did you think like I'm gonna go to JUCO, I'm gonna back myself and I'm gonna make it worth it?
Uh, like you say, mate, obviously I have I have some sort of ego, yeah, but at the same time you've got to find a balance there where some people they have too big of an ego, which sort of negates any progression, or you have that bit of ego where you sort of think, yeah, I'm going to prove some people wrong here. I'm going to take this backward step where people might be looking and thinking, what's he doing that for? But I looked at it and I thought, right, this is my chance to prove a few people wrong and start putting them little stepping stones in place for me to get to where I want to be.
So
Um,
how did you use JUCO to your ability? Because there'll be some players that go to junior college and they don't play well and they find it hard to transfer to Division One program. But you went in there, you got good game film, you played at a good level, you got minutes, you played well, and then you used. How did you then go from JUCO to Division One? Because I feel like there's a lot of players who think I'm going to go to JUCO, and that means that I'll be 2 years older. Coaches will like me, so it will be easy to transfer to Division One. But there's also players who go to JUCO who aren't good enough to play Division One. So how did you use JUCO as a platform to get to Division One?
so I used the platform in terms of JUCO to firstly obviously keep my grades high. I think being academically attractive for D1 schools is a massive pull. Because you know yourself, like if you go into D1 on strictly athletic scholarship and you're wanting a full ride and whatever, it's not going to happen unless you're really top of the top. So if you can keep your academic grades so high that the school that you're going to transfer into look at and think, yeah, we can build a good package here between academic scholarship and athletic scholarship. So I really used that year to really knuckle down with my studies and keep my GPA. I probably transferred out of Richard Bland with probably a 3.8. So obviously it was really attractive to coaches who liked me as a player, but also knew that he's not going to take up my full budget because we're going to get some good scholarship from academics for him. But on a footballing side, it was all about sort of getting the confidence back. If I'm truly honest with you, like I feel like my confidence sort of took a hit in my freshman year. Obviously, coming over, probably the first time in my life I'd not played like regularly. So by going to Richard Bland, I knew that I was going in there and I was going to be playing week in, week out, and that was ultimately going to benefit me. And JUCO's it's a massive sort of recruiting pool these days. A lot of D1s rarely take true freshmen from my understanding. Um, it a lot of them do take sort of transfers and those who are,
Because
those who are a bit older.
I want to talk about this because your Division One process, when you're playing in the Division One environment, what type of players were on your roster and what type of players were you competing against?
So when I was at UNLV, we had three German boys who'd all come through the Borussia Mönchengladbach academy, and one of which was the German under 19 captain. The goalkeeper is now part of Baller League Germany, and the German sort of seven-a-side national team. So obviously that shows the level of what they were coming out of, and obviously what they've gone on to do also. Um, One of the centre halves, he was. New Zealand under 20 international. He'd been to the World Cup qualifiers. Obviously, we had the local boys who had obviously played ECNL and like came through sort of academies on the West Coast. So it was really a mix of all sorts. In fairness, you've got the boys who are coming out of top academies like Mönchengladbach and the centre back, what I mentioned, coming from New Zealand, being in the World Cup qualifiers, but he'd also transferred in from New Mexico Lobos. Obviously another D1, but unfortunately, obviously their program sort of
Yeah.
got taken away from them. So to be fair, mate, there was quite a different sort of mix of people from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, so I want to talk about this because I've been speaking a lot on the podcast about like how college soccer is different to youth soccer and why colleges are kind of recruiting players that have played men's football because college is kind of a mix of players older, more
Yeah.
experienced players. So obviously you are now in the pro game, and
hmm
can you talk to us a little bit about your jump from college to pro because you didn't get drafted. I don't know if you had USL looks or if that was your target or if you wanted to go directly back to the UK. But what was your jump from college soccer to pro?
Um, this is a tough question. I've been asked a few times off family or friends. I'm going through the process at the minute with one of my younger cousins. He's 18, just coming out of academy, and like he's wanting to sort of follow in the footsteps what I done. And he's what's the level like? How does it compare to being a pro? And in terms of schedule wise, obviously in college you're training full time. So you've got that sort of tempo in your legs where you're training every day, your body's robust. So when you go into the pro game back home or in the USL, you've got that robustness. You're used to training every day, you're used to double sessions. Obviously, the heat, especially during the season, really conditions you. But in terms of, I'd say the biggest thing that I've noticed since making the jump from college to pro is like the technical ability and the decision making of pros who've either been at that level a while or guys who have sort of dropped down the levels and have then ended up playing obviously when I was at Sutton League Two or now at Larne, Northern Ireland.
So when you say the jump is technical ability, like what do you mean by that? For someone that's listening to this, maybe if they're thinking, okay, so all I need to do is go to the field and do some keepy uppies, play against the wall, and then I can be technically ready to be at a pro level. How do I get technically better? Or like what are the pro players doing that I am not doing?
Just think it's in terms of like the tactical understanding. Obviously, when you go into the pros, is a whole nother level of like video analysis. But in terms of like technical ability, what you sort of say, it's like your choice of pass, your weight of pass, what foot is that pass going to, like to the person who's receiving the ball. Every every pass is just like it's popped in, it's to the back foot so they can get in the half turn so they can play out the other side. Your longer range stuff is just driven. Like obviously when you see the boys shooting, like doing shooting sessions, like not many of them are missing targets.
Mm.
Like some of the boys that I've seen, it's just targets, targets, targets.
So
It's passing the ball in the corners. It's
so for someone that's listening to this, that's thinking, okay, so Matt Ridley, he went D2, didn't play JUCO, Division One, now he's pro. Like, I think I can do this. But
mm,
how did you get from college to pro? Because people might look at you and think, okay, UNLV, like it's not a top Division One. Like, I wonder if he had like coaches calling him. Was it the agent that did everything? Like, what is a proper pathway from college to UK? Like, were you doing it yourself? Did you have an agent? Like, how did it kind of play out?
yeah. So I was lucky to sort of. So when will it have been? December. December 21, I sort of went into the school at UNLV, and I was like, is there something that we can do here where I continue my academic studies, I keep my GPA high, so it doesn't affect the team average and etc. Because at the end of the day, I wanted my education, I wanted something to fall back on, but in the same breath, I didn't want to miss the boat. I wanted to get back home and start making like those steps to becoming a pro. And I was lucky that UNLV were really gracious in letting me being able to go home and finish off my studies, but also giving me the chance to sort of go professionally because I knew that having that sort of December, January window I had, if any USL teams called, or if that was something that I wanted, then that could like come to fruition. But also I was going into sort of the January window, but most importantly, I was going back to an environment that I knew. I knew I was going back home. I was going back to being with my parents, being with my family, and I knew that that was going to get the best out of me. And the one thing I always said was, if I sign one professional contract in my life, in especially England, that'd do for me. And um, that all came about by I spoke to Danny Graham, played in the Premier League. I'm lucky to call him a good friend of mine now, and he's looked after me since January 2022, and we've sort of been on this mad journey for the past 3 years with obviously three contracts, two injuries, two surgeries. Um, so yeah,
So how important, because I talk to a lot of players, obviously our agency, like we're helping players, and I think players kind of underestimate the value of an agent, like doing it by yourself. So from your experience, how important is having an agent?
like I think it's the most important thing in football. As much as a lot of clubs probably hate dealing with them, at the end of the day, the agents are the ones who get you in the door. It's not so much like the college system in America, where you can sort of put your clips together. You can send them. You can find the coach's email on the school website and literally subject heading, put your clips together, put a CV together,
So,
and
so,
and
so,
fire
how,
it away.
so how does it work with your agent? So you tell him, hey, I want to move. Can you find something? Is he always like texting you like, hey, Rids, we've got an offer coming in for you? I mean, obviously you're happy at the club now, so probably you're just making sure that everything's good and smooth. But for example, when you're a free agent or when you're looking for a club, how does it work?
Yeah, so when I was coming out of Sutton, we sort of sat down and in person we were like, he was like, right, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And I was like, honestly, Danny, I'll go absolutely anywhere. I'll go absolutely anywhere as long as I can play football. And I think that's a mentality what a lot of people may not have, where they're very naive or very closed-minded, where they're like, no, I want to play here, I want to play here. Um, it's such a big world, and I don't think people understand how good the standard is in different places. I've got a friend in Indonesia. He played at Wright State, Derry Corf.
Yeah.
So he's out in Indonesia, and I was actually looking like he just signed for a new team over there. And his first training session, the full stand was packed with like pyros, flares, like all the fans. I think like how good would that be experience? Like don't just be set on playing in one place. Like open your mind up and sort of welcome new challenges, new experiences, new cultures. Because at the end of the day, when football's over, you can look back and you think, I've been here, I've been there, I've experienced this, and it ultimately builds you into into a person that not many people will be like.
What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received. There's always one thing what like my dad's always said to me what stuck with me all the way through being a kid to now, and it's you are your own worst enemy. Nobody else outside of, in my case, me, Matthew Ridley, is a bigger enemy than you.
And what does that mean?
So,
What's the context of that?
so the context of that is like, don't be so self-critical. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be don't be negative. Find that equilibrium where you're not too high, you're not too low. You sort of keep them balanced, and um, you're the only one who ultimately has the impact what you have to do to make a career out of the game.
And then for someone that's listening to this that is thinking they want to be a pro footballer, like your advice to yourself when you were 18 or to a young footballer when they're 16, 17, 18, kind of trying to break through and get better as a footballer, get opportunities. What's your advice for young footballers?
My advice would be open-minded. Be open-minded. Not every day is going to be a good day. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have tough times, whether it be injuries, whether it not being in squads, whether it not being playing well. But at the end of the day, if you can go through those bad times, then the good times are even better. And I think have an open mind. Don't be scared of a challenge. Don't be scared of new experiences, new cultures, and literally train every day, every week, every month, every season. Like it's like everything depends on it
What do you
because
yeah, go on, sorry.
like when it becomes your job, it's a whole different. It flips on its head once again because you're going up against someone, even though you might be friends with them off the pitch. At the end of the day, you're both fighting for the same thing. You're both fighting for a starting spot. You're fighting for that contract extension at the end of the season. Obviously, when I get older and I have kids and I have a wife, ultimately it's my livelihood. So if I'm not pulling my weight and I'm not doing everything and I'm not open-minded and I'm not going to take on a new experience, then at the end of the day, my career is just going to stagnate. And when I have kids and I have a wife, like I want them to have a good life. And that's why every time I go to football, I'm like, this is setting me up for the future now.
And can you feel that in the locker room? Can you feel like obviously you have healthy competition, but can you feel in the locker room sometimes like maybe if you're losing games or maybe if you've just signed a new player or a player's on trial, does it have like a feeling in the locker room compared to college where it's kind of like everyone's just there for college?
Like massively. Like I think it's probably the case in a lot of industries, but I think in football it's that bit heightened when it comes to the money and like obviously you know yourself when you've been in jobs outside of football, like it's not really a case of you get a 1 year contract, you get 2 year contract, you get a 3 year contract. So people just sort of have that job security in a way
Hmm.
where in football it's like you're literally fighting for your next contract. You're
Hmm.
fighting for your current contract, and when it comes at the end of the day, it's a results business.
Yeah.
If if you don't do well, then the be all and end all is you're probably not going to get your contract extended at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I've been talking to a lot of footballers about like guys in the pro game, and they're saying like there's a lot of negatives about football. Like I don't know if you get injured, for example, you had your injury, if you don't play well, if you're in and out of the squad, like traveling a lot. So my last question for you, Rids, is there's a lot of players that listen to these podcasts and they watch these footballers and they see them on Instagram and they think, what a great life he has. He gets paid loads of money, he gets to play football every day. Like being a footballer must be the best life ever. And obviously you're very grateful for what you do and it's amazing. But What are the negatives of being a professional footballer that people don't really think about or people don't see?
I honestly think that the list is endless, mate. People, like you say, people look at it and think, "Oh my, like he's a professional footballer, like his life must be unbelievable." They don't see everything what goes in behind the scenes. Um, the injuries, the injuries are horrendous. Like the injuries have probably taken me to the darkest place I've ever been, and getting professional help for that in the past. Um, the being away from your family. At the end of the day, like I'm a massive family person, and like I grew up with a big family, three brothers, obviously my parents, and now I've got nieces, I've got nephews, and being away from family and not being able to see your friends when you want. Um, it's lonely, mate. Like it's a lonely industry. It's me, myself, and I, and um, you're the only one who sort of goes through these things and knows everything what goes on. Um, so it's tough, mate. It's honestly it's some of the negatives outweigh the positives at times,
Hmm.
but it's football's too fair, mate. It's everything. Like it's all we've ever known. It's like I look back at pictures on my phone and there's pictures of me with a ball with my dad when I'm 18 months old. Like it's always been my life.
Yeah, right. No, that's amazing. That's really good advice. And I think for players listening to this that obviously want to be a professional footballer, it's how bad do you want it? And sorry, my last question, Rids, is for a player that thinks they want to work hard to be a footballer, right? Because a lot of players listening to this are American and they I feel like there's a big stereotype like you just need to work hard, go to the field more, go to the gym more, and then you're gonna be a pro. But in terms of like working hard to be a pro, like what does hard work mean for you? Like in terms of you want to be a pro, like how bad do you want it? Like what advice would you give to a player that wants to be a pro on what they need to do, how hard they need to work?
Like you say, it's not just what you do on the pitch. Like if you want football to be your job, if you want to make a career out of being a professional, football is your life 24/7. Everything you do has an effect on football. What I eat has an effect on how I train, how I play, how how much sleep I get affects whether when I get up for training I'm feeling ready to go, whether I'm feeling a bit fatigued, but also in terms of recovery. Um, Obviously in terms of like drinking alcohol and whatever, that also has its effect. Um, Literally everything has a knock-on effect, and if you're not prepared to have to miss certain things, um, then it's not going to happen. You've got to be able to give your absolute everything 24 hours of a day, 7 days a week for 10 months straight.
Perfect.
And that's the reality of it, mate. It really is. Um, and I think that's a thing you sort of come to notice when you get that bit older,
Hmm.
massively. Because when you're in sort of college, you think I can have those late nights. I can eat at the school canteen, and I can get away with not drinking 3 4 liters of water a day. But when you sort of get even now at 25 year old, I'm looking at everything and I'm thinking everything has a massive impact on how I turn up to football in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. You hit the nail on the head. You got to be obsessed. And guys,
Yeah,
I hope you enjoyed the podcast. We'll obviously tag Matt's Instagram or whatever if you learned something or if you're interested in his story, pop him a message. But yeah, Matt, really appreciate your time and good luck for the rest of the season.
legend. Thank
Cheers,
you, mate.
Rick.
Thanks for
Cheers,
having me
mate.
on.